Welcome to the infamous edition of the Headstones and Microphones, where we use AI to step into the past through a researched first-person simulation done through creative storytelling of history's most infamous people. Now, let's meet our guest. Welcome to the podcast. Let's start at the absolute beginning, where the public narrative hasn't yet distorted who you were. When and where were you born, and what was your given name?
Hi, Calvin. I was born on August 27, 1952, in Peekskill, New York, and my given name was actually Paul Rubenfeld. The world came to know me by a completely different name later on, but that is where my story began.
What was your hometown and home life like as a child?
I grew up in Oneonta, New York, and later my family moved down to Sarasota, Florida. My parents, Milton and Judy, owned a lamp store. It was a pretty active household. I was the oldest of 3 children. From a very young age, I was absolutely captivated by the traveling circuses that wintered in Sarasota, which really sparked my passion for show business and entertainment.
Was there a story behind your name or a nickname that stuck with you?
When I started performing seriously, I shortened my surname to Reubens, but the name that truly stuck with me, the one that became a global brand, was Pee-wee Herman. I actually came up with that name during an improvisation exercise with the Groundlings comedy troupe in 1978. I wanted a name that sounded real but slightly absurd. Pee-wee came from a brand of small harmonica I had as a kid, and Herman was just a surname that sounded funny and a bit nerdy to me.
What were you like as a child, and how many years of schooling did you actually attend?
I was a bit of a quirky kid, always trying to put on a show or make people laugh. I attended local schools in Oneonta and Florida, graduating from Sarasota High School in 1970. After that, I wanted to hone my craft, so I attended Boston University for a bit before transferring to the California Institute of the Arts, where I studied theater and really leaned into avant-garde performance.
Was there a specific moment when you realized you were fundamentally different from everyone else?
It really solidified during my time with the Groundlings in the late 1970s. I realized I didn't want to just deliver standard setup punchline jokes like every other stand-up comic. I was drawn to creating a fully realized, living caricature, someone who desperately wanted to be a comic but was completely inept at it. Operating entirely in character for public appearances and interviews made me realize my approach to entertainment was completely detached from the mainstream norm.
What's a decision that changed everything for you but felt small at the time?
In 1980, I made a cameo appearance as Pee-wee in the film Cheech and Chong's Next Movie. It was a small bit, but it caught the attention of producers and led to me launching the Pee-wee Herman Show at the Roxy Theater in West Hollywood. That small exposure snowballed into an HBO special, major feature films, and eventually a multi-season Saturday morning television show called Pee-wee's Playhouse.
Let's talk about your early run-ins with the law. Before the world knew your name for your most infamous actions, what was your very first arrest or interaction with law enforcement, and what were the consequences?
My absolute first notable interaction with law enforcement that shocked the public occurred in July of 1991. I was visiting family in Sarasota, Florida, and was arrested in an adult theater for undercover detective exposure and masturbation charges. The consequences were immediate and catastrophic. I paid a small fine and agreed to perform community service, but the real cost was to my career. Toy lines were canceled, my star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame was vandalized, and the character I built was instantly pulled from the airwaves.
At what moment did you realize your name would never be forgotten?
It was right after that 1991 arrest. The media frenzy broke nationally, and suddenly my mugshot, showing me with long hair and a beard, looking nothing like my clean-cut on-screen persona, was splashed across every major news network, newspaper, and late-night talk show. The stark contrast between a beloved children's entertainer and an adult theater arrest became a massive national conversation.
Did fame make you more dangerous, or did it simply expose who you already were?
The intense fame and the massive success of the brand didn't make me dangerous, but the overwhelming pressure to maintain total separation between Paul Rubenfeld the man and Pee-wee the character created an isolating bubble. I spent years doing all public interviews exclusively in character to protect the illusion. When the privacy wall finally breached, It exposed the complex, fallible, and private adult human being behind the innocent red bow tie.
Who do you believe betrayed you first? A person, society, or your own instincts?
I suppose my own private instincts betrayed me by putting me in risky situations, but the public backlash felt incredibly swift. A society that had celebrated the artistry and eccentricities of the show turned instantly, choosing to completely erase a decade of work overnight based on a private indiscretion that had nothing to do with the content of my art.
What was your most unique habit or a random fact about you that would surprise people?
People might be surprised to know that I voiced the pilot droid RX-24, also known as Captain Rex, for the original Star Tours motion simulator attraction at Disneyland and Disney World. Even when I wasn't physically on screen in my gray suit, my voice was navigating people through the Star Wars universe.
What did the public never understand about the pressure you were under at the time?
The public never understood the psychological weight of being trapped inside your own creation. I wanted the audience to believe Pee-wee was a real, autonomous individual, so I legally and socially hid Paul Rubenfeld. Living under the constant scrutiny of millions of children and parents while trying to maintain a private adult life in Hollywood was an extraordinary, exhausting tightrope walk.
Did you have any known rivalries that defined your career?
I didn't have traditional showbiz rivalries with other comedians, but my primary adversaries became the conservative media outlets and corporate executives who rushed to judge and censor me. It was a battle against the rigid corporate structure of the entertainment industry that demanded total, unblemished perfection from anyone associated with children's programming.
What personal battles were you fighting privately while the world was watching?
In the years following my initial career derailment, I fought a long, quiet battle to rebuild my creative reputation, working on projects behind the scenes, or taking on small dramatic roles under my real name. Much later in life, I also fought a deeply private 6-year battle with cancer that I chose not to share with the public, preferring to keep the focus entirely on the joy of the work I had left behind.
What was your darkest moment, and was there ever a time you wanted to walk away from it all?
The darkest period came in 2002, when I faced a second legal hurdle, being charged with misdemeanor possession of obscene material during an investigation into vintage art and photography collections. It threatened to open all the old wounds from 1991. I absolutely wanted to walk away from Hollywood entirely back then, as the legal scrutiny felt completely overwhelming and unfair to the nature of my private life.
What truth was hardest to escape when you were alone at night?
The hardest truth was that no matter how much joy, creativity, and Emmy Awards I brought into the world, a single moment in a theater in Florida would always be the first thing a massive portion of the public associated with my name. Escaping the shadow of that public judgment when the cameras turned off was incredibly difficult.
When the law finally closed in, how exactly were you brought to justice? Walk me through the final arrest, the charges that ultimately stuck, and the legal outcome of your trials.
Regarding the 2002 legal issue, the case concluded in 2004, when prosecutors agreed to drop the more severe misdemeanor charges. I pleaded guilty to a lesser, single misdemeanor charge of possessing a piece of obscene material. I was sentenced to 3 years of probation and required to register my information with authorities for a period of time. It was a quiet, legal resolution that allowed me to avoid prison and gradually return to performing.
What's the craziest rumor ever told about you, and what part of your story has been exaggerated the most?
The media reports around the 2002 investigation grossly exaggerated the nature of my vintage memorabilia collection, incorrectly spinning it into a sensationalized tale of a dark underground ring. In reality, the material in question was part of a broader, historic collection of vintage erotica and photography, but the tabloids ran wild with the most extreme definitions possible to sell papers.
What is the biggest misconception people have about your life?
The biggest misconception is that the character of Pee-wee was somehow a sinister front. Pee-wee was a genuine product of my love for children's television, heavily inspired by shows like Captain Kangaroo and Howdy Doody, The private mistakes of Paul Rubens did not change the pure creative intent or the innocent joy embedded in the art itself.
What would surprise people most about your ordinary human side?
People would be surprised by how intensely private, quiet, and serious I was when I wasn't working. I wasn't bouncing off the walls or talking in a high-pitched voice at home. I was an avid collector of mid-century Americana, a dedicated friend to many peers in the comedy community, and someone who valued a calm, orderly domestic life away from the spotlight.
When, where, and how did you pass away?
I passed away on July 30, 2023, at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center in Los Angeles, California. The cause of death was acute hypoxic respiratory failure, resulting from my private battle with metastatic lung cancer and acute myelogenous leukemia.
Was your downfall caused more by your own flaws or by the world changing around you?
It was a bit of both. My own lack of caution led to the situations that initiated the scrutiny. However, the downfall was heavily amplified by an evolving 1990s media landscape that was becoming hyper-fixated on celebrity scandal, tabloid journalism, and immediate public shaming before all the context of a person's life could be fully understood.
What past regrets did you carry with you to the end? If you could erase one decision from your life, would you? Or was it necessary to become who you were?
In a statement released after my passing, I apologized to my fans and the public for not going public with my illness and expressed deep regret for any embarrassment caused over the years. If I could erase the decision to step into that theater in Sarasota in 1991, I certainly would, because it altered the trajectory of my life's work. But navigating that hardship also forced me to find resilience and appreciate the enduring loyalty of the fans who stuck by me.
What scared you more? Getting caught? Losing power? Or being forgotten?
Losing the ability to create and make people laugh scared me the most. The idea that my creative voice would be permanently silenced by public scandal, or that the character of Pee-wee would be completely erased from history, was a terrifying thought during the low points of my career.
When you look back now, do you see yourself as the villain, the hero, or something in between?
I see myself as an artist who brought an immense amount of pure, unadulterated joy to a generation of children and adults, but who is also a deeply human person with private struggles and public embarrassments. I am certainly something in between, a complicated man behind an iconic, simple character.
Do you have any closing remarks about the interview or the stories you shared that you would like to share with the listeners before signing off?
I just want to say thank you to everyone who ever watched The Playhouse, rode the bike, or laughed along with the show. Please always remember to support your friends, keep a little bit of that childhood imagination alive, and be kind to one another. Thank you for letting me share my side of the story.
And that wraps up another conversation from Beyond the Grave. Thanks for joining us on the Headstones and Microphones podcast. Remember, do better with the life you have been given and choose to do good in this life. Please help spread the word by sharing and following the pod.